I'm here at a small event organised by the Heritage and Historical Society of the village of Mömbris. But what does a historical society actually do? Well, from time to time, a historical society goes on trips to learn more about other places, and on this occasion I was invited to come with them to the nearby village of Meerholz. In 1974 it was made a constituent part of the small city of Gelnhausen, but it has its own long history and coat of arms. I wonder what inspired it. We were guests of the Historical Society of Meerholz and Heile and given a guided tour by its chairman. And just to prove that in a place like this history means history, the first stop was the famous menhir of Meerholz. Now, if like me you were brought up on classic European comic books, you might be imagining a menhir to be a lot more imposing than this one. You would probably have to go to Brittany to find a menhir that looks like what you're thinking of. But this is still a menhir, and it's about 4,500 years old. It was discovered in 1929 by surprised workers who were just trying to lay the sewers. Most people passing this place probably don't realise that they're looking at a mysterious artefact that's about as old as Stonehenge, but that's what you need a local historian for. Meanwhile, our next stop was the old cemetery. After all, these people are not average tourists. Most of them are also not professional historians, but do know how to read history in gravestones. One part of the cemetery is dedicated to the Counts of Isenburg, Büdingen and Meerholz, a branch of the Isenburg-Büdingen family that lasted from 1687 to 1929. It's a shame that these gravestones were actually vandalised some years ago and had to be replaced. But none of this answers the question at the beginning of this video. What does a historical society do? Well, let's take a break and visit the Historical Society's headquarters, which is fittingly in one of the village's more historic buildings. Used in the past as a village hall, a bakery and a fire station, it's now full of various artefacts and serves as a museum, which is open once a month or by appointment. And if you're thinking it all looks very disorganized, you're right. It is. These places don't have a lot of resources and very little space and have to do what they can to accommodate whatever random exhibits they can buy or have donated to them.
Und wir würden Ihnen gern was bringen. Wir haben einen Sekretär.
Okay.
Oh. Und da habe ich gedacht, ja, der hat mit Meerholz zu tun. Ich habe gesagt, wie schwer ist denn der? Mit wie viel Mann brauchen wir, um den hier hochzuheben? Ach nein, das ist ein kleines Möbelstück, das ist ein Reisesekretär. Das ist alles mit eingelegte. Alles hier. Und das hat der Graf da oben, der mit dem Rauschebart, der Graf Kall, in dem großen Gemälde, da mit dem großen Rahmen, hat er seinem Rentmeister, der Rentmeister war der Verwalter, er hat die gräflichen Besitztümer unter sich gehabt. Zur Verabschiedung nach 35, 40 Jahren dieses Dings geschickt hier, geschenkt.
One of the prize exhibits is something that you have to have shown to you, a guest book from the local schloss containing, among others, the signature of Kaiser Wilhelm II, who in 1906 attended the wedding of Countess Ortrud von Isenburg-Büdingen-Meerholz to Prince Albrecht of Schleswig-Holstein-Sonderburg-Glücksberg, making her a relative of the late Prince Philip. And this is the point. It's not just abstract history, it's the story of the village and its connection with the rest of the world. And sometimes this story takes a dark turn.
Und da habe ich vor 2-3 Jahren 2 leere Geschosshülsen bekommen. Ja, das haben Soldaten, ihren Eltern haben hier was rein signiert. Da steht dann Treff Eismeerfront 1941 bis 1944. Und das haben sie geschickt als Weihnachtsgeschenk. Ja. Und hier. Das ist Bronze.
Ich wollte gerade sagen.
Und da haben sie unsere Glocke genommen, die sie der Kirche abgehängt haben, und haben den Scheiß hier draus gemacht.
Incidentally, while most steins you can buy in Germany are nothing more than tourist souvenirs, these are the real thing. Reservists' mugs presented to conscripted soldiers when they were demobbed. These are from the First World War, after which the tradition died out. There's a lot we can learn about ourselves from our history, the mistakes we need to avoid, the advances we have made, the skills we have lost. Not pictured in this video, by the way, is the tiny dark cupboard full of old documents waiting to be collated, digitalized and preserved for future generations. The final stop was the schloss, built in the 16th century on the site of a former monastery, later the official residence of the Isenburg, Büding and Meerholz family. During the Second World War, after that family had died out, the building was acquired by the city of Frankfurt, which still owns it and uses it as a care home for the elderly. But tucked away in one corner, and you'll miss it if you don't have somebody with you who knows about it, is a small church. It used to be bigger back when it was the monastery church, but when the Counts of Isenburg and Büdingen got their hands on it, they converted 2/3 of it into living quarters, leaving only this part. A lot of the interior decoration isn't exactly original. The wood panelling behind the altar, for example, was put there in 1906, basically to impress the Kaiser. One of the things you learn from local history is that very often the buildings we are trying to preserve in their original condition are not in fact in their original condition. That was pretty much all from the trip to Meerholz, but the following weekend was going to be a busy one for the Heritage and Historical Society of Mömbris. The second Sunday in September is the Day of the Open Monument, a national event in Germany where historical monuments and buildings open their doors and give free tours. Mömbris is a much smaller village than Meerholz, but does what it can. There's an old mill that once produced linseed and rapeseed oil right up until the 1950s, and a smithy. Neither of these buildings stand where they were originally built. The smithy was brought here from a nearby village, and the mill had to be moved to make way for a new road. And this basically constitutes Mömbris's open-air museum. It's not much, and it's hardly a tourist magnet, but it's largely the work of the Historical Society, a small group of volunteers with a passion for history, even if it gets almost no support from the municipality, something that is clearly a sore point with the members. Right now, this society, like so many others all over Germany, is quietly and with few resources and little manpower getting on with the task of collecting, scanning and photographing all kinds of historically valuable documents before they fade and crumble. This is the army making sure we never forget who we once were.